Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and awesome news for Overwatch Lore fans. A big chunky piece of lore is coming to us just next week. In a blog on the Overwatch website, it's been announced that the Hero of Numbani, the first Overwatch novel by Nicky Drayden, is out on June the 2nd. Now, this announcement was accompanied by a very chunky excerpt of the novel. So in this video, I'm going to go through the lore learnings and see what we can hope to expect from the book. Timecodes are in the description below if you want to skip around to different topics, and in the description there's a link to the Overwatch blog if you want to read it yourself. We see a afternoon of Aoife at a weekend working on a private project and spending time with her friends at home in her workshop. After a clip of one of her inventions went viral on Hologram, presumably the Overwatch world's version of Instagram, Aoife's been working in all of her spare time on a project called a Junie, a junior assistant robot designed to serve as a stand-in for social and professional situations. Like if you're apparently unable to make a meeting, you could send your Junie to take video and report back with a transcript of the events for you. Aoife demonstrates the robot to her friends Hasana and Nade, hopefully to try and get their help in putting a few together. She's got 151 back orders at this point. As the robot falls off the table and walks into one of her friend's trainers, it seems that the spatial processing algorithms aren't apparently the only thing that's not quite working. As Nade and Hasana examine the robot also fails to project an image of Nade. The friends decide to set to work, and during this time, we learn a lot more about Aoife's day-to-day life, her friends, how they came to get to know each other, and the dynamic between the three friends. 11 years old or so, we know that Aoife's 11 in Arisa's bio, and Aoife's feeling of being slightly disconnected from her friends and their lives. And in the midst of all this, we're learning things about the Overwatch world in Universe 2 in terms of lore and story, so I'm really excited to see how much we'll see in the full novel. 300 pages, remember. Aoife shares her discomfort with her mother, but feels that the two aren't quite connecting on this, and being told that she can't use robots to solve everything, proceeds to suggest a solution to her friends that, well, is exactly that. One of the first things I appreciated about this excerpt, and at 3,500 words it's pretty chunky, is the obvious care and attention to Overwatch lore and setting that has been taken, and you can clearly see the collaboration and work between Nicky Drayden, the author, and maybe Michael Chu or other people in the Overwatch team. Throughout the excerpt, there are just lots of little nods to things past, present and future that will be very familiar to us as Overwatch fans, but they don't get in the way of the story if you're new to the world, which is very important for a book like this too. Let's not forget this is marketed at the young adult market and is out through Scholastic. One such example is when the Junie bot tries to cast this hologram of Nade. It actually gets him visually looking really spot on. Everything from the mismatched socks peeking under the pants of his school uniform, to the stewed beans stain on the lapel of his shirt, to the scar on his forehead from the battle he'd lost, to the no parking sign in front of Kofi Aromo. From this excerpt, we see a combination of cultural touchpoints that Overwatch fans like ourselves will appreciate, along with developing the world and pushing it out in a slightly newer and funnier way as well. I really appreciated Aoife's interest that she got for her prototype on Hologram. 1,023 likes, 850 claps and 332 shares. Do throw a like and share and comment below. Hang on a second. Is Aoife parodying me? Am I parodying Aoife? Oh no! Parodyception! The world of online content being discussed aside, it's kind of cool to see the world being fleshed out in fun and different ways. Now, I almost love some what I think are little in references or sort of little jokes with the Overwatch community. There's a really cool paragraph about Omnicode. Now, Aoife's friends are telling a little story, something that Aoife sadly missed because she wasn't at school. She was doing her more senior complicated studies at the time, about a friend who gets his head trapped inside a barrier field that he brought in for effectively a class project. Apparently he thought he could understand the Omnicode instructions. A non-augmented human reading something as complex as Omnicode? Aoife had studied the Omnics written language for nearly 3 years, and she couldn't understand more than the occasional word here and there. If she couldn't read Omnicode, the chances Isaac could were slim to none. Now, I love examples like that where it's very clear that not only has Nicky Drayden been having fun with the Overwatch world and expanding and developing it, but also the Overwatch team have clearly been maybe involved as well. To me, remember when people in the community were trying to decipher Omnicode at one point, and Michael Chu had to say, look, it's not something that humans can really understand. I love the reinforcement of it here in quite a funny way. Maybe just sort of a little laugh with us together there, I think. We also get insight into more of the Overwatch world in terms of tech. Efi, for example, has managed to fit this pocket holographic technology on her Junie robot's back that manages to project a life-sized holographic projection of Nade, her friend. Why the group's friend Isaac could bring a military-grade barrier into the science lab during their discussion on semi-permeable objects is beyond me, but it's cool to see technology being incorporated, described, and expanding the day-to-day of the Overwatch world that we see so far, maybe in comics, occasionally in animated shorts, and of course sometimes in the backgrounds of the levels too. Alongside this world building, there's also some interesting little lore teasers and comments. One lovely bit of detail I liked was on Sojourn. Maybe Efi thinks she could get her friends, perhaps talk them into getting cybernetic brain upgrades, just like Sojourn, one of Efi's favourite heroes from the old Overwatch cartoons, based on Overwatch's real-life former captain. Such a chunky sentence that Sojourn has cybernetic brain upgrades, and former captain, obviously we know Sojourn has gone into sort of missing, presumed dead, or in hiding territory, so she's thought by the world to be dead, but this of course supports that and reinforces it. And that in the Overwatch universe there was Overwatch cartoons detailing the stories of Overwatch. I love it. It's Overwatch cartoonception. Please, Netflix Overwatch cartoon series. When's it coming? And with fun little details like that, I'm really hopeful to see what the rest of the novel has in store. Who knows, maybe even some little Overwatch 2 or other Overwatch story teasers. There are even things like details about Lucio lore. Now, you have to understand that these are cited in the context of Efi discussing how much of a Lucio fan her, Hasana and Nade are, but in different ways. We're even learning more about Efi's character and her friends' characters by the way that their appreciation of Lucio and his work is described. Efi, for example, focuses on details like he wore size 42 skates and knew his sonic amplifier could hit a target up to 8 meters away, and that when he was liberating the first favela in Rio in his revolution, he was playing the Rejuvenencia as a song. Hasana's knowledge, on the other hand, seems to be more trivial in nature to Efi, of course, like the depth of Lucio's navel, the type of floss he used, and his favourite food, pão de queijo, little round cheese breads that Hasana liked to prepare on the anniversary of the day she first heard Lucio's music. Nade was no less a fan, although he made a point to stay out of his friend's heated rivalry. Now, I personally love this kind of writing in detail because it's sharing character and expanding the world and telling us stuff about the characters as well as addressing a current universe that we know and are familiar with. Now, I've never done this myself, but I can only imagine how hard it must be writing for an existing set of fans of an existing world and universe that you haven't yourself directly been involved in creating. Remember that this book also has to be accessible and enjoyable to people who haven't got the in-depth experience or time with the Overwatch world that we have. So it's finding a balance there, and I really like this approach personally. As well as lore details and cool world building, we see a whole bunch of development of Efi as a person and character. This excerpt is set, I think, before the dramatic events of Doomfist, but we already see Efi growing up very fast, even before that, and struggling a bit with her place in the world. She has this side hustle selling prototype robots alongside her studies, one that she's been devoting pretty much all of her spare time to, and she herself identifies that she's out of her depth in some ways, selling things that she doesn't have ready. These 151 orders, she's not even made any yet. Her Junie, this junior assistant to Efi, is an example of having big dreams and not having enough hands to make those dreams real. It's a good job that her friends are there to help her out. She directly feels that she's gotten in way over her head. We also get insight into how Efi feels disconnected somewhat from the world around her. As a child prodigy, she was placed in junior high classes halfway through the academic year. By the end of the next year, she taught herself algebra and geometry, and she's now studying senior high school classes after lunchtime, international baccalaureate instruction in calculus and physics. And a good chunk of this excerpt of the novel is dedicated to a story that Nade tries to tell, even though Hasana tries to give him a nudge as if she knows that Efi is going to feel that she's missed out on something. I love this bit of writing as it really shows how Efi is kind of stuck between two worlds. As Nade tells the story back, Efi laughs in all the wrong places and then misses the punchline. A lesson on semi-permeable barriers at their school led a classmate bringing in a military-grade barrier somehow. He was convinced he could read the Omnicode instructions. Ify finds that hilarious, just the thought of someone in her school thinking that they could read Omnicode when she herself has tried to read it for 3 years with no luck. And that, on her level of thinking, is hilarious. And as she laughs, Nade is described as just staring at her blankly, not getting why she's laughing. And then, after the actual punchline, which is of course the more physical humour, the classmate getting the barrier stuck around his head like a goldfish bowl with one of his hands stuck inside, Ify's now sitting there awkwardly and described as not knowing whether to laugh or not. Nade then ends the awkward moment by saying, "You really had to be there," which doesn't help, as that's what Ify's feeling sad about, missing out on these events of her friends and the times that they're having. Later in the evening of their day, as they've been working on robots for pretty much until it was dark, Ify tells Nade off briefly as he's sitting there twitching the legs of the robot, making it dance to the music in the background. As Nade and Hasana share a little joke under their breath and laugh, Ify feels a little bit upset. She feels left out of jokes between the two, and also notices that they've been getting closer as friends, whereas previously they were both best friends of Ify. Now they're also becoming increasingly friends with each other, and Ify is feeling left out of that. As for Ify's friends, we also learn a little bit about their characters. Now, Nade and Hasana have been best friends with Ify since the unfortunate science fair incident a few years back. Ify had asked for a couple of volunteers to help her demonstrate her science fair project and accidentally over-amplified a gravity field, and no one ever let her forget it. We see a lot of Nade playing the clown, him flailing his arms around, hyperbolic, describing things in a very excited way. He likes the idea of slacking off school and having the Junie robot doing his notes for him, but he is very supportive when he notices that Ify looks upset at her robot failing. Hasana, on the other hand, has a dry sense of humour. She's a little bit more considerate and tactful, nudging Nade when he goes into his big tale of how funny the incident at school was, noticing again that Ify's a little bit upset as well. And it'll be awesome to see how these two's characters are developed more in the book, as the three of them are very much the protagonists of the show, as well as Arisa, of course. Finally, we're introduced to another character, Ify's mum Fola, as she comes in and gives Ify a bit of a telling off for having her two friends helping her with robots in her workshop, again it seems. As a social worker, Ify's proud of her mum's work, but also says that it meant mother was constantly trying to help Ify solve problems she didn't necessarily want solved. Berating Ify a little bit for having everything in her life, according to Fola, centering around robots, she wants to know whether Ify and her friends will actually go out and do something fun. Ify mocks the suggestion of mini-golf, but then felt even worse because she didn't know what to do for fun either, because to Ify work was fun, by her own admission, although she hated to admit it. The sound of her friends laughing in the room without her as she's talking to her mum makes Ify feel even worse, and after talking about it with her, Ify has what I think is a half-joking but also a funny solution. Maybe she could help her friends catch up to her level. She could build them both a robotic tutor, customised to teach them during their every waking hour. Or maybe she could talk them into getting cybernetic brain implants, just like Sojourn, one of Ify's favourite heroes from the old Overwatch cartoons, based on Overwatch's real-life former captain. It's a part-joking response, but Ify's mum before this has said, "This isn't something you can logic your way out of. Nade and Hasana are real people with real emotions and real needs." Now, at the beginning of this whole excerpt, to round things off, Ify's main concern, of course, is that her robot works, but also she doesn't want it to embarrass her in front of her friends. I love the context throughout here that, albeit all of the different issues and topics that are covered, Ify and her friends are 11-year-olds. Ify's concern with her PC is that it's all that she could afford with her allowance, and she's very much grounded in and relevant to the challenges and situation of her world. So there you go, there's my thoughts, impressions, lore learnings of the Overwatch world and more from the excerpt. What do you think? Have you read it? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. If you like this video, throw a like and subscribe. Comment with how you feel this story's looking for you. As soon as it's released, as soon as I get my hands on it, I'll be doing a bunch of content on it. So stay tuned for that on this channel as well, and subscribe if you'd like to see it. Do check out all of my Overwatch lore, interactions and voice lines videos covering the entire world of Overwatch for the last 5 years and more. And thanks to my patrons who have supported my videos for a whole bunch of this time. If you'd like to see how you could support the channel, go and check out patreon.com/Hammeh. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.